all of a sudden getting really uptight, like running around the boat pretty frantically. And the girls are looking at me saying, oh shit, are we sinking? And they don't know what's going on.
All right, Ryan, you have been involved in 59 North since trip number 4. You sailed on ICEBEAR with me and Clint back in the day, right. 2016. And now you sail with me from Marquesas to Tahiti. We're sitting in Tahiti as we record this. What are your impressions of this trip, but also of like the evolution of 59 North since the last time you sailed with us?
It's crazy to see how much it's grown. Everything is bigger. The boat is much bigger. The company's bigger. The operation's bigger. It was really cool for me to get to see it, how much it's changed. The passage is awesome. It just feels like a privilege to be out here. And it also feels like we are at the edge of the world. We're just in the middle of nowhere out here.
Can you describe, like, I think we both agreed that, like, so we started in Nuku Hiva in the Marquesas, stopped in the Tuamotus, and now we're in Tahiti. And, like, Tahiti is quite civilized. Like, it's basically a French city here, is what it feels like. But, like, Nuku Hiva and Tuamotus are absolutely not that. So describe, like, what it was like in those places in that transition from one to the next. Because I was not expecting how remote the Marquesas in particular were going to be.
Yeah, the Marquesas really are like the edge of the edge. I mean, you fly to Tahiti and then you fly 3.5 more hours into the oblivion, into this little piece of land. There's no flat land at all. It's like vertical straight into the water. So the settlements are like small and sparse. The water is so full of plankton that it looks muddy. So it's not that crystal clear water that you expect in the tropics. It kind of felt like, I think you described it as Jurassic Park, and that's a perfect description.
Yeah, I mean, truly. I mean, like, and I just, almost everywhere, you get spoiled. Like, you and I have both cruised our own boats in the Caribbean, and you get spoiled there where, like, pretty much every island you can anchor and there's, like, a beach bar or, like, a cafe or something you can hang out. Like, there just wasn't that in Nuku Hiva, like, the main town in the Marquesas. There's just none of that. There was one tiny little restaurant and a few houses. Like, yeah, that was it.
Getting provisions was a mission, and not necessarily a successful one.
You got some fish from the local guys. That was cool.
That's the way to do it. You got to find the local stuff.
Yeah.
But the things that come on a boat don't always come.
And then for me, like, I joined the boat in Galapagos in a rolly anchorage because there's no protected harbor there. I sail 3,300 miles to the Marquesas, and there's no protected anchorage there, so the boat's just rolling around. And then we get to Tuamotus, and you go through the pass, and now you're in the lagoon. And it was the first time in 6.5 weeks that the boat was like stationary at anchor. And oh my God, it was such a relief. It was such a relief. Like the contrast between Tuamotus and Nuku Hiva was like crazy.
The Tuamotus, that really I think it emphasized how much of a paradise it felt like. The watercolor is just insane turquoise, like indescribable. You can see, I don't know, 30 feet, 40 feet.
Oh, more.
You see the anchor on the bottom in deep water. It was cooler. It was breezier. It was flatter.
You could swim.
It was just like a different world. And it's really interesting. Like, I think we've both been reading this Wide Sea book about the Polynesians. It's interesting to think about how they traveled between the islands and how the different but similar civilizations that existed on these different islands.
Yeah. What did you think about you're hoping you and I might sail together again, you as mate? You've been getting your yachtmaster and like doing this, kind of taking this step to do it professionally. What was your impression of being in you were kind of the apprentice role today, or on this trip, but you did a lot of the work of the mate? Like, what was that like?
It's really hard, man. I mean, I was mentally prepared, I thought, and I appreciate you say this, I think, before every trip, that like there will come a time when you're laying in your bunk asking yourself why you've chosen to be here. And that definitely happened at one point or more than one point.
Do you want to describe specifically why that happened?
Not really, but I will. Surprisingly to me, I got seasick for the first time on this passage. First time in my life, and at the least opportune moment possible. Had to do the walk of shame through the entire crew in the cockpit, getting ready for dinner to go empty my puke bucket off the stern. And that was, then I went to lay down and was like, I guess I'm just not cut out for this. That was
you recovered though.
Yeah, that was 6 p.m. And by midnight, I was like, I have a watch. I'm getting up. I don't give a shit. I am going to be standing there one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it did feel like I kind of overcame being able to get back into it. So that was a new experience for me.
Yeah. Also, I think it was contributed by the heat. Like, I don't think it's possible to describe to people how incredibly hot and humid it was in the Marquesas. And continues to be here, but way less so. I mean, the Marquesas was the hottest place on earth.
The best way I can describe the feeling is go run a marathon and then don't shower for 2 weeks and sleep in the same clothes and bake in the sun. And it's incredibly hot all the time. The weather, it was like a high of 82 degrees, a low of 81 degrees, and a water temp of 82 degrees.
Yeah, like the water, we measured the water coming out of the tanks. The fresh water coming out of the tanks was 86 degrees.
It's just, yeah. So,
and 100% humidity.
You instituted a very awesome ritual, which is cold water at dinner, which is like better than anything I've ever tasted in my life.
It's, no ice, no nothing. Just a jug of water put in the fridge for an hour before dinner. And it is,
changed everything.
Yeah. It's the simple pleasures, man. I mean, that's what you get out there.
Yeah. It's amazing how fast you can adapt too.
Yeah. So this is the end of the line for me. I'm going home. I've been away for almost 8 weeks. You've got small kids. Like, can you can you even relate to that? Like, could you picture being away for that long?
No, I think it'll be 3 weeks for me and it feels like forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the small stuff with the little kids, you just miss the like little morning whatevers. So it's hard to be away. And, I think, I don't know how you do it, but you guys have kind of a routine where,
well, me and I both do it. I think that's part of the appeal. We both get to go away.
It's more balanced. Yeah.
But I'm headed home, and Mary and Emily. Emily's going to skipper. Emily was a mate for me for 2 trips. Now she's moving up to skipper. She's going to skipper with Mary on the next trip out to Bora Bora and back to Tahiti. And then Alex comes down, relieves Emily. We got too many people now working for us. Can't keep everybody straight. And they go up to Hawaii and Alaska. So it's like I think Falcon has already sailed 10,000 miles this year alone, and 10,000 miles more to go. And I've got the summer off to sail my boat in Sweden. So I'm excited. But it was great having you on the trip, and I hope we do this again.
Thanks for having me. One thing I forgot to say about seeing it now, Falcon is just a sailing machine, and it is awesome. Like, it is really, really fun to be on the boat. And thanks for having me. It was really cool.
Cool, man. Thanks. All right, here we go. On to this episode. This was one I recorded with Ben Shaw of Out the Gate Sailing in Hiva Oa. I love meeting these people like in the field. He had crossed the Pacific on his boat with his kids and wife flew out, and we were there on Falcon. And it's like sat in the cockpit of DOVKA and recorded a podcast. So that's this one. All right, until next time,
hold fast.
Yes, you got it right on cue. This season of On the Wind is sponsored by Weather Routing Inc., aka WRI, 59 North's longtime weather routing and forecasting friends. Personally, my relationship with WRI goes all the way back to 2008 when I first started working with World Cruising Club on the ARC Rally. WRI were then and continue to be the official weather routing forecasters and partners of the World Cruising Club events, and it was only natural that we continued working with them when we started 59 North. WRI is run by a bunch of true weather nerds, and I mean that in the best possible sense of the word. Their team of forecasters is as dedicated to weather as we are to sailing and seamanship, and no matter how comfortable I get with analyzing my own weather sources, it's nice to know that we always have the professionals looking over our shoulders. For the boat owners out there or anyone crewing on a passage, WRI can provide customized routing and forecasting tailored to your own boat and your own sailing style. I find their service most useful for helping us find good departure windows. To learn more and sign up for WRI, go to WRIWX.com and tell them that 59 North sent you. That's WRIWX.com. This season of On the Wind is also sponsored by BoatHowTo.com, an educational website co-founded by longtime friend of the pod and sailing tech guru Nigel Calder. Nigel, Jan, and the Boat How To team teaches you how to be self-reliant on the water and save money by fixing things yourself. Boat How To currently offers 2 in-depth courses on marine electrical systems and marine diesel engine maintenance, both Nigel's area of expertise. And in fact, our own Adam Brown, bosun at 59 North, has been exploring and enjoying both. By now, almost 3,000 students from 85 different countries have taken the Boat How To courses, and various boat building schools have integrated the courses into their curriculum. All 59 North sailing staff have access to the course as well, and if you're a member of our quarterdeck, you get a special discount on the courses. There's no better way to master your boat's systems. Check out the courses at BoatHowTo.com. That's BoatHowTo.com. You're listening to On the Wind, my podcast about offshore sailing. I'm your host, Andy Schell. Ben Shaw returns to the podcast, this time in person and onboard DOVKA, his family's Hallberg Rassy. Ben is the host of the Out the Gate Sailing Podcast and a former crew of 59 North. Ben and his wife Lauren sailed with us on ICEBEAR in 2019 to prepare for their own cruising adventures, and we met up quite spontaneously in Hiva Oa after both crossing the Pacific to the Marquesas. Ben and I talked about his family's cruising plans. They've been living aboard now for 2 years with their young kids, ocean sailing, podcasting, and quite a bit more. All right, Ben. Let's just start. If you want to describe the setting, I've said this many times, but this may take the cake as the most exotic setting I've ever recorded a podcast in.
Yeah. Well, we are sitting in Tahauku Bay. I think I have that right. Near Atuona on Hiva Oa, and it is amazingly idyllic. I woke up this morning, had my coffee in the cockpit with this amazing green peak pointing into the clouds over us. It's a chock-a-block anchorage, but this is a pretty magical place.
It is, and it was pretty cool, pretty serendipitous that as we were making our landfall, we're like 5 miles outside the bay here, and I just go down to look at the chart, and I see an AIS target, and it says DOVKA. It's like, no shit. I mean, I knew you guys were on your way here, but it just seems to happen that way, serendipitously. You just always run into people you know.
Isn't it wild? You cross this vast ocean, and then all of a sudden, you're in proximity to somebody you know. Yeah, we were sailing back. We'd been here a week after our landfall. I was coming back to drop my crew off, and same thing I saw in the AIS. I said Nordic Falcon, and at first I didn't know it was Nordic Falcon. I just know it as Falcon. I was like, is that Falcon? Shit, that's Falcon! I was about to WhatsApp you. I'm so glad you called on the VHF.
Yeah, I didn't. It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah,
the whole Starlink thing. We don't have Starlink on the boat, and I won't. And we can get into that later. But yeah. So I called you on the VHF, and it's funny because you and I had been trying to do this podcast for like weeks before you left, and it just never worked because of the time difference, and I was in Sweden, you were in Mexico, and now here we are, unplanned, and it's like, okay,
the universe wanted to have it here.
Exactly. It's way better to do it in person. We're on your boat. So you guys came by a different route. We came from Galapagos, sailed, I think, 3,200 miles.
Okay.
Where did you come from?
We came from Banderas Bay, a little town called La Cruz, which is this amazing cruisers mecca on Banderas Bay in Mexico. And so last year, we spent sailing the Sea of Cortez, and we sailed 2,989 miles from Mexico to the Marquesas.
In how many days?
In 23 and a half days.
Is that your longest passage?
Oh, by far.
Yeah? What was it before passage.
That? On my old boat, I think we did 2 weeks down to the Virgins from the East Coast. Something like that, 14 days.
What was your other boat?
I had an Allied Looters 33.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Dove boat. The Dove boat. The second Dove.
Graham's second boat.
Is that why you had that boat?
No, I didn't find that out until afterwards, but he had hull number 69 or something, and I had hull number 66, so I always felt this offending. It was like so many other people, it was a book that I think my dad threw it on my bed when I was like 10 and said, you have 3 years left. You can beat the record.
Wow.
But yeah, really influenced me. So that was very cool. I refit that boat in Mobile, Alabama with my brother. He and I lived on it, and then he went off to medical school. Just the chain rattling there.
I was going to say that the sounds you get used to on a boat at anchor, the ones that are normal and the ones that are like strike a different tone.
So my brother and I spent a lot of time refitting that boat, and then he was one of my crew for this trip across the Pacific, which was wonderful.
So explain to me, because you're cruising with your family, your wife and kids, and Lauren and you actually sailed with us on ICEBEAR. Was that 2019?
It was pre-COVID.
Yeah,
it was 2019. It was just before Axel came along, and I think it was one of the last trips that you two did.
That's
together.
Right. Was it up to St. John's?
It was up to Lunenburg.
Okay, it was the second to last trip because we did up to St. John's then, and that was it.
And that was it. So that was really special. They could sail with you both.
And did you do that trip like
in preparation for this.
Okay, all right.
Lauren had never been offshore.
Yeah.
And she did 1 or 2 days on this boat with my parents in the Bahamas. That's the other thing about this boat, which you can get into, it was my parents. But she'd never been offshore for an extended amount of time, and I wanted her to get that experience. So I figured, what better way? People I trusted, go offshore and see what she thought. Yeah, and you didn't turn her off to it completely, so that was good.
But how did you end up like figuring out how you're going to do this? Because she and the kids did not do the long passage, but they were supposed to arrive tomorrow?
When do this, you mean the passage?
Cruising in general, like because you guys cruise together. Just give me the big picture and how you came to that decision to split it up, family wise, friends, brother, whatever.
Yeah,
how did you? Why did you do that?
So I mean, it's been a long-standing dream of mine to go cruising. In fact, when I was a kid, my parents would tell me stories of families they had met when they were cruising before kids. And I used to beg them, take us out of school. Let's go cruising. Let's maybe just a year. Let's just go. And the timing never worked out for them. My dad's job and other things and whatever. We did a lot of weekend sailing and week-long sailing and chartering. So I didn't get to do it. So I decided I was going to subject my children to it.
That's actually surprising, knowing your parents' history, that they didn't take you cruising.
Yeah.
I think I just maybe assumed that they did, and that was the impetus for you doing this.
Yeah. No, they didn't. I mean, we did a lot of we would do charters in the Caribbean, or we would meet up with friends that they knew from cruising, or we would take the boat up to Philadelphia from the Chesapeake. So we did longer stints on the boat.
Yeah.
We had a Do 429, which was a great little boat for cruising the Chesapeake. But no, we didn't. We never did that. And when I first met Lauren, one of the things we bonded over was we knew we wanted to take our kids, if we had kids at some point, take our kids and go overseas. To me, in my mind, that always meant sailing. To her, I don't think she was so clear that that's what I was set on, but it became very clear.
Yep.
And she's a very adventurous person, but sailing was never in her worldview, really. When she grew up, she's a mountain person. She's never been on boats. And she's adapted well. Although I will say it's not her first love. It's not what she's passionate about in the way that I am. But she enjoys it. And so when we were thinking about it more, we thought, okay, what age would be good? And we thought, pre-middle school, when they're old enough to be aware, but not too old that they're teenagers and want to be home. Already they're starting to be like, we want a normal life. We want to be back home with our friends. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Okay. That's exactly the age my sister and I were when we went cruising.
And I think about you guys a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and how it changed your life. My little one right now they're about to be back on the boat, and she's having a lot of trouble. I want a normal life. I want to be back with my friends. Why can't we just go to school? Now, when she gets here, I think she's going to be in heaven.
Yeah, it's just the transition. Yeah.
But my hope is, like you, they'll both look back on the experience as a transformative one for them and say, wow.
Well, they will, whether it's positively transformative or negatively.
Right, exactly.
It will be transformative. The question is in what direction.
Hopefully they look back and say that was a positive experience.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And Dad wasn't too much of an asshole during the trip. That's the main thing. I've taken on this motto, and Lauren helps me remind me of it. If it's not fun, it's not fun. And there's a lot of stressors on the boat. I'm not only a parent, not only doing homeschooling, but taking care of the boat when something goes wrong. When something goes wrong, and Andy, actually, again, I think about you a lot in this regard because I've watched you perform as captain of the boat, and you have a whole crew that are looking to you. So we were sailing along, and all of a sudden the bilge pump goes on and doesn't go off. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. And searching for water, tasting it. Okay, it's fresh water. Okay, that's good. But I'm all of a sudden getting really uptight, running around the boat pretty frantically. And the girls are looking at me saying, oh shit, are we sinking? And they don't know what's going on. So it's it's a really good lesson to just kind of slow down. It's not only about what you're doing, it's what the image you're projecting. And so that's been a really good lesson. And I have to say, my brother said, "Wow, you're more patient than you used to be. You must have been a parent." So that was nice to hear from him. Yeah.
So back to the question of why, like, how you're doing this. How are you splitting up the time?
I got off on a tangent there. So, okay. So we left in November of 23 from San Francisco, which is our home.
23?
Yeah.
So you've been at this for a while now.
So, well, right before New Year 24.
Yeah.
So we've been at this a while. Over a year. Yeah. So we went down the coast. We spent Christmas time in Avalon in the Channel Islands. We got down to Ventura, and then this is all as a family, and then sailed offshore down to Cabo and spent a season in the Sea of Cortez, which was wonderful. Sea of Cortez is a magical place to cruise. It's pretty easy to get to. The wildlife is just astounding. There's whale sharks, there's dolphins, there's blue whales, there's humpback whales. Anyway, so we played around there until it just got too hot. It gets ungodly hot in the summer. So we put the boat on the hard up north in the Sea of Cortez and did some land travel in the U.S.
Via what, with a camper or
with our
hostels,
we had
hotels?
sold our SUV to my brother and we just bought it back from him.
Okay, nice.
So the backstory is we were planning to do this a year later and then I got laid off and we said, well, I guess that's a sign from the universe that we'd go. So Lauren and I just quit our jobs. We had been saving for this for a long time, for a decade. We've been saving for this, and we've been doing it for 2 years and we're about out of money. So Mexico, and then because we have a 35-foot boat, at the end of last season, it was really unclear what we wanted to do. It was really tough on Lauren in a lot of ways. There's a lot of adjustment. I think the first year of cruising, anytime, but cruising as a family is a real adjustment period. It's like when you move to a new city. You have to give it time. You have to get into the routines. And Lauren was doing all the cooking, most of the homeschooling, and I'm saying, oh, I've got to take care of the boat. But it just wasn't a good breakdown of responsibilities. She was completely overwhelmed by the end. So we had to rethink some things. And are we going to do the Pacific? Neither one of us really wanted to do another season of the Sea of Cortez. As much as we liked it, we felt like we had done it.
Yep.
Do we go home? Do we just bring the boat back to San Francisco? Felt like a little bit of a cop-out to me. I mean, I've been dreaming about the Pacific since I was a tiny little kid. I grew up on stories of my father sailing in the Pacific. But we couldn't really figure out how we did a month-long passage with the two of us and two kids who don't stand watch, need attention most of the time, need to have exercise, and we didn't have room for another crew member, right? If we had a room to have another person on this boat with four of us, to have a fifth person, we could have maybe made it work.
And then, just to be clear, the boat we're sitting on right now having this conversation was your parents' boat, a
Right.
Hallberg Rassy 352. So in what year? It must be from the 70s or 80s.
It's 85.
80s.
Yeah, it's an 85. So it was my
so
parents'
it's not a big
boat.
I mean, it's a big boat, but it's not a big boat.
It's a great cruising boat for a couple.
Yeah.
And that's my parents took it all over the world. They went to Europe, did the Med, went up and down the East Coast. Sorry, Andy, you're having to shift back and forth.
It's the constant sun battle here. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be too dark otherwise.
Yeah. So, I had looked around for boats, but there was no better boat that I was going to get at the price I got it for, which was basically nothing.
Yeah.
I had to ship it across the country. It was in Annapolis. I put it on a truck and brought it out to San Francisco, splashed it in the water the day before everything shut down.
Oh,
COVID.
jeez.
And I was lucky to get it in the water.
Yeah, really.
And then it was my COVID project.
Okay, that's
So
cool.
for 2 years, I just refit this boat, which was a joy. I mean, and I look back on it, and that time, cruising is special, but was as wonderful as the actual sailing. Because, I would put the kids to bed, come over to the boat, have a beer, work for a few hours, drive home at midnight, and just go to sleep. And I just loved it.
That's a really key point, what you just said there, that you enjoyed that as much as you enjoyed the cruising. And And if you don't, like, that's a red flag because you have to, because that part's never going to end.
Yeah.
That's really interesting you say that.
There's all kinds of different ways to cruise, but that for me is one of the reasons I love sailing. And in fact, the 2 days before my brother just flew out, we spent a whole day just working on the boat. Like, we were doing a major project on the cap rail, and he and we said that was one of the best days because we just love tinkering on the boat. It's what we grew up doing with our father. I mean, that's the other great thing about this boat is I would call my dad and say, "Why the hell did you do this way?" Or,
you actually have a previous owner you can
exactly.
yell at.
I can yell at him.
Instead of just yelling at the boat, yell at the previous owner.
Why'd you wire the ground into this other? Yeah.
That's great.
So, yeah, and he would say, "I don't know." That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But no, we could spitball ideas together, and he could help me think about things and remind me of maintenance, and that was super helpful. Yeah.
So was it a relief for you and Lauren as a family to part ways while you did the passage, or was it stressful? Or both?
Both. Yeah. I mean, I've been away from them for 7 weeks now, which is a long time. You know that.
You and me are in the exact. I was going to bring that up later. You and me are in the. You're at the tail end of your, because they're coming tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
and
yeah.
I'm not quite halfway through. I'm going to be gone for 7 weeks. So.
Yeah.
It's we talked about this a little bit yesterday, where it's a blessing and a curse, because like it's nice to get away from your family and have alone time sometimes. But then
you've had this experience more than once, I'm sure. But I woke up today to an empty boat, and I haven't been on a boat by myself in a long time, and it's odd. It's beautiful. Like, I sat up in the cockpit, I just was like reveling at the quiet.
Did you ever have ambitions of solo sailing?
Yeah, and at one point I brought up to Lauren, I was like, I could set DOVKA up pretty easily to single hand. She shut that idea down pretty quick.
Yeah.
I still do. I still think, a pack cup or something like that on the right boat could be a lot of fun. I'd love to test myself mentally.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a little bit. I brought the looters we were talking about, which was called Baggy Wrinkle, up from Florida up to Annapolis by myself.
Oh, that's cool. One shot?
Well, it was mostly motoring up the intercoastal.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So that, there wasn't a lot of sailing.
Yeah.
But I got a taste of what it was like to handle the boat myself, and when I ran aground, having to catch it off myself, things like that. So,
I've also have those ambitions and never really got to fulfill them, and not sure that I want to anymore. Life changes and everything.
Yeah.
But the idea of waking up on a boat by yourself, especially in a place like this, is extremely appealing. Especially, I came from Falcon, which is just anchored over there, with 11 people on board, and this it's fine when you're at sea because there's always people sleeping, there's always people in the cockpit. But when you're at anchor like this and everybody's on the same schedule and everyone's trying to get in the galley at the same time to make their coffee in the morning, it's just like, whew, exhale. And like when everyone leaves, it's the best day, because then Emily and I will have the whole boat to ourselves, and we have a rule that's like, okay, if I've got headphones in, that means I'm not here, so leave me alone.
Nice.
And like that's that. So I'm envious hearing you talking about waking up to an empty boat, even though you say it's a little strange. It's like, oh my God, what I would give for that.
Yeah. I understand that. Wow. Well, that's why we're doing the podcast here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So where are Lauren and the kids?
Lauren and the kids had their own adventure while we were in the middle of the ocean. And because of Starlink, we were able to stay in touch, which was bizarre, but also wonderful. They went off gallivanting. Lauren found a really cheap ticket to Europe. And they had a great time taking trains around Europe.
Oh, cool.
Connecting with friends. And they are currently en route. I think they are headed to SFO airport right now as we speak. And
so they
flying.
Coming straight from Europe, basically?
No, they've been back in San Francisco for a week.
Oh, okay, all right. I was going to say, that's going to be a hell of a
No, they've adjusted, although they all have colds now. So they're going to bring those germs to the boat. They will fly to Papeete and then spend a night there, and tomorrow morning catch a flight, and I will go to the airport and meet them, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, cool.
And it'll be adjustment. I think the temperature is going to be a major adjustment for them. I mean, it's one thing when you slowly sail and it gets warmer and warmer, and you kind of get used to the humidity, and you get used to the tropics, but they're going to be right into it right away.
I can completely relate to them because I got off a plane from Sweden to the Galapagos in the end of March.
Oh.
And man, I still haven't gotten adjusted to it. I've been on the boat for a month. It is hot as hell here.
Yeah, it is. You get in the middle of the day, you just got to sit in the shade, not
Yeah.
too much of anything, or jump in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll be here soon, and we will explore the Marquesas, which I've done a little bit with my crew. We've been here a week, and I can talk a little bit about that, but this place has lived up to every expectation. And then we'll go and explore the Tuamotus.
It must be cool for you, like, because you've seen a little bit of it, and I know this with, like, Axel. I just love showing him new things that I've discovered, so you're going to get to do that now. It's like you said you were swimming with the manta rays the other morning, right?
Yeah.
Like, how excited are you to show that to your kids?
So excited. My daughter, I was FaceTiming with my daughter. She's like, Dad, that's not fair. You can't swim without me. So that's the best thing of cruising with kids is you get to explore the world and see it through their eyes. I mean, it's a cliche, right? It is, but you do. You get to see it through their eyes. And in Mexico, we traveled inland to Mexico City, and my daughter was really into the Aztecs and, you know, their human sacrifices, and she wanted to learn all about it. And we get to see the ruins. We get to right there, and just see her light up about that was so cool. And yeah, the homeschooling has been one of the biggest challenges of the trip and one of the biggest highlights. I put minimal thought into it beforehand, and unlike my wife, who put an extreme amount of thought into
You
it.
let
and
her
came
do
up
all the
with-
thinking.
She went through 5 math curriculums and came up with the right one. And you should see how much storage on this boat is devoted to school supplies. Both of those cabinets behind
Yeah, I
you.
mean, practically speaking, like, how do you even do that? Like, how do you decide? How does it work? What is
well,
the public,
we're missing a
did they
key
go
person
to,
here.
Did they go to public school at home?
Yeah,
Like,
they both went to
so
public school.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah. Well, Lauren spent a lot of time reading through curriculums and thinking about how our kids learn. What are they going to like? What are they going to not like? How are they going to? So there are so many different ways to do it,
Did it have
especially after
anything
COVID.
to do with the school that they left? Is the
so
school involved
some
at all?
states in the United States, if you leave, I think Washington, for example, will say, great, you can stay enrolled, and you can log on, and you can participate still.
Follow the same curriculum,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. And they'll basically lay it out for you. And I think a lot of countries do that as well.
Well, interestingly enough, Sweden, it is illegal to homeschool.
Germany, too.
You can't. So, like, if we wanted to do what you guys are doing with Axel, we would have to move away from Sweden on paper, and then we'd not get any of the benefits of being a Swedish citizen, healthcare, all the rest of that stuff, because it's illegal to have your kids not go to
That's
public
fascinating.
school. It's like a socialization thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's meant to prevent homeschooling at home.
Yeah.
But the people that want to travel and homeschool, you're caught in that. You can still do it, but you have to leave Sweden on paper
so
and then
un-American.
come back. It's very.
So one of the
very
tricky
different.
things was finding secular homeschooling material.
Oh,
because we're not
interesting.
very religious.
Yeah. Never occurred to me,
But
actually.
most of the homeschooling is very religious because that's traditionally in the United States who's chosen to homeschool.
Okay.
But there is a whole secular homeschool movement out there, and Lauren identified it. And so we decided to do everything on paper. California, nothing. They say it's not illegal, but they don't help you at all.
They're not going to help you, yeah.
So we got a math curriculum, we got a science curriculum, we have a reading curriculum, we have writing. What am I missing? I did spelling with the girls. Lauren assigned me spelling because I can't spell. So my daughters and I learned to spell together. It was great. We've started doing family book club where we all read the same book and we
that's
talk
cool.
about it.
I remember when I was, so I would have been in 4th grade when we were homeschooled. And
Yeah,
I
what
read,
did you do when you were a kid? on the boat?
So we did, like, the school, we went to small public school. They provided all the materials and
That's
the books
great.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I was obviously all analog back then. But I remember doing school. We went down the ICW, and that was like nothing else to do except school because we were just motoring. And usually my mom and dad shared, but mostly my dad was driving the boat. We do 12-hour days on the ICW school,
Wow.
and we tried to pack all the school in before we got because we just went to the Bahamas. So then once we got to the Bahamas, there
nice.
was very little schooling because
Yeah.
we had done all of it. And then we had time to go back to the ICW to finish whatever we missed.
Yeah.
So once we were out cruising in the Bahamas, it was maybe an hour or two a day, and then just going out and doing stuff.
That's great. Yeah, and that's how we try and do school in the morning. And this is pretty standard. When we were in La Cruz, there were a lot of other kid boats.
Yeah, sure.
And so kids do school in the morning. Then they run off and play, which is awesome. They can just go be kids and do their own thing. But you can go faster. I mean, as you pointed out, you can get it done. You can pack it in. So,
I remember how weird it was because we got back in May, and we had finished the 4th grade curriculum.
Uh-huh.
But I went back to school with my classmates for the last 3 or 4 weeks of school, and I'm like, just
did
there,
this.
but
Yeah.
I didn't need to do anything because I'd already done it. That was just very strange. I
strange.
specifically rember that. But
it's going to be really interesting. My older daughter is going into middle school, and she's going to a traditional school, and we go back in August. So I'm jumping ahead here.
Yeah.
But we are going back home, not too distant future, and we'll see how she fits back in.
So how does it feel for you? Like this is only the beginning, really, of what you have most looked forward to,
Yeah,
and yet it's also somehow the end of your trip.
yeah.
How does that feel?
Oh, so many mixed emotions. I try and stay in the moment and just enjoy it as much as possible. And so far, especially the passage enabled me to do that. But I've got to figure out what we're going to do with the boat. If we're trying to take it home up to Hawaii and back home, or if we're going to sell it, which would be heartbreaking to me, but there's a time for everything. I was talking to your dad about him selling his boat, and this isn't the right boat to have for day sailing on San Francisco Bay. It's just not, and that's what I'll be doing for the next 10 years while I raise my kids. And maybe we'll take off cruising again, but I'm not going to let this boat sit for a decade and then have to refit her again. And there's an excitement in what's next. I'm the kind of person who's always like, okay, there's another adventure around the corner. I already have all the kit at home for wing foiling, and I haven't learned to do it yet. I've started a little bit, but I'm like, okay, maybe I can scratch the sailing itch that way, and I'm psyched to have. Wow, I don't know if I'll have time, but I'm excited to have the opportunity to maybe try that. So
what? So this is completely off topic, but you said scratch the sailing itch by wing foiling. What is it that attracts you to sailing? Is it the means of travel, or is it the technical aspect of sailing?
That's such a great question, because as I alluded to before, one of the things I love about being a boat owner is tinkering on the boat and fixing it, and that wouldn't be present for that.
Yeah.
I love being out in the world and traveling. I've always said, for me, sailing is a means to an end. It's a way to take your home with you and go explore the world. I enjoy sailing. I like being out and sailing and cruising along, but I'm not a sailing junkie in the way that I wouldn't be out on San Francisco Bay racing every weekend just to sail.
Yeah.
I'm not a day sailor so much,
Yep.
and I know that about myself. But so I don't know. I don't know if that'll scratch the itch. I don't know. Maybe I need a small dinghy to work on, to play with and teach my kids how to sail. Maybe that's right, like an Opti or something.
Yeah, it's interesting when you mentioned my dad, who's on Falcon, did this trip with us. I think he sold his Vokier 38, which he had taken to the Caribbean several times. And he has a Catalina now, and he's about to go in with one of my best friends actually on his Beneteau 37. So they're going to share it because neither of them have other friends they sail with. They end up sailing together anyway. They both don't need a boat. So,
That's a good way to do it.
I still think there's a part of him that's dissatisfied with that, even though it's the right boat for the stage he's in.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people that own a Jeep that will never drive it off road, but just because they could, satisfies something. So you guys having this boat, if you keep it and have it in San Francisco Bay, even if you never come back here, the fact that you could maintains that flame, I think, partly in the back of your mind.
Yeah, but is that fair to the boat?
No,
My dream
no, it's
for
not.
the boat.
It's definitely not, but it's still, you know what I'm saying? You're going to
Yeah.
lose part of that. That's never going to be satisfied, no matter what boat you have, even if it's the right boat for the time of your life. If you're like my dad, anyway, there's a part of him that will never be satisfied, even if he never leaves the dock. The fact that it's there and it's like represents possibility. His Catalina now, he knows he can never take that out of the bay, and that's just suffocates him a little bit. I think.
Isn't that what Yacht World is for?
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm already looking and I haven't even sold a
And you
boat.
know, I'm in a unique position because like I am very satisfied. I am like you. I don't think I'm a day sailor either, but what's most interesting to me right now is the ability to just sail my smaller boat back home in the archipelago and do that kind of adventure. But I'm spoiled in the fact that I still get to do this on this big, great, awesome ocean sailing boat. I get to do both.
You've set up your life pretty amazingly so that you can go back and forth. And I mean, there's certainly trade-offs, right?
For sure, but that, I mean, it was that's kind of on purpose, and I'm like that satisfies me, and I think actually that, you know, back to my dad, that helps him as well because he gets to do this with me too. Like he sails whenever he wants with us, and gets to scratch that itch, and it allows him to accept the fact that he has a smaller bay boat now that he doesn't have to take anywhere because he gets, you know, here he is.
Yeah. Well, I got to get home, find a job, and make some money. But I could see coming with you guys again to scratch the itch of, you know, ocean passages. That's a great way to do it.
It's not the same as owning your own boat, though.
No, it's not. It's not.
But it's some aspect. You get at least you get to do it.
I mean, my dream for this boat would be to find a young couple who are super excited about sailing and keeping up a boat, and who want to keep. I mean, she's ready to go cruise the world.
I was gonna say, I mean, yeah, it's like if anybody, I mean, you could get on a plane to Tahiti and you could hand them the keys and be like, have fun.
Oh, I'll sail with them for a while.
Yeah, even better, exactly.
But you know, from here there's so much to explore.
Yeah,
you go down to New Zealand. The distances are far.
It is. I was looking at the tracker map from Falcon just the other day to just, you know, see our route on there, and it's like when you're zoomed out at the globe level, all you see is the boat's icon in the middle of blue. Like you can't. It's like, holy crap, we're off the deep end here.
I wanted to turn the tables on you a little bit because we've been we talked a little bit about yesterday about how the Pacific season has been different for you and for the company. And you were saying distances is one of the things. Getting crew to the boats is more difficult. You don't know the ports. What are some of the challenges in the Pacific here for 59 North?
Well, so it's interesting because for me personally, I kind of opposite to what you said. You're trying to stay in the moment and enjoy this part of your trip. Your family's going to be here, and this is like you're going to stay here. Well, I was trying to do that at home.
Yeah.
You know, I've had this hanging over my head coming away, and this is the longest time I've been away from Axel. I mean, I've been away 6 weeks. This is going to be almost 8 weeks. And as he gets older, as you know, it's not that it's harder, it's just different.
Yeah.
He's more of a human that I can relate to. So I tried really to stay present at home and really did no research whatsoever about where I was going. I mean, Alex, one of our skippers, he was in charge of all the logistics for this year, making sure we had agents in each place and all the permits. Like Galapagos was a big deal. Panama Canal was a big deal. I had nothing to do with that. That was entirely on him, which was great. But it kind of, I didn't get in the mindset until I was on the plane to Ecuador to join the boat, where I started thinking, okay, where am I going? What do I need to think about? You know, how am I going to get there?
So what's been the biggest surprise, since you don't know the places as well as you know the places you would sail to in the Atlantic, and you didn't do the research? What did you show up and go, oh shit, that's different than I expected?
Well, this is going to sound very disappointing, but the biggest surprise, I guess, is that nothing was surprising. It's just kind of normal.
Okay.
It's like it's not that different, other than it being unfamiliar and definitely feeling more exotic. I mean, I joined the boat in Galapagos, which is like probably the most exotic place I've ever been to. And now we made landfall here, which is also very exotic. So I was telling Axel, I'm like, Axel, I'm in Moana Land. That's his favorite movie. I'm like, Axel, yes, I'm on the islands that, look,
Yes.
I got a new tattoo that looks like Moana.
You got a very cool tattoo there.
So there hasn't been a lot of surprises, actually, from my perspective. It's you know
the boat.
I know the boat. And that's the kind of weird thing about ocean sailing is we're inside your boat right now. This doesn't change.
No, this is
the
home.
view outside is what changes, and this very strange. Even when you're in the middle of we're in middle Pacific. I think that at our midpoint, The closest land was Easter Island, 1,200 miles away.
Wow.
And yet, inside the boat, you feel very secure and very much at home because that is home.
Yeah.
You should feel way more exposed than it actually feels.
I had interesting moments where we were out in the middle of the Pacific and I'm feeling very secure. I'm feeling at home. And I go out and I sit in the cockpit and I look around and I say, man, we are in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if something happens, we are all on our own.
Well, so when something we had a small scare on Falcon where we were only 600 or 700 miles from here. So I mean that's freaking far. I always ask the crew like, maybe do you know this answer to this question? There's a in the lower 48 of the United States, how far away can you get into the wilderness where how far away from any man-made structure or road or telephone pole can you get?
Oh.
Like if you think like I'm in the wilderness,
right.
How far actually is that in the lower 48?
In the lower 48.
Not counting
Not
Alaska, Hawaii, or the islands.
50 miles?
It's way shorter than you think. It's 5 miles.
Whoa.
5 miles is like a fire road. It's some sign of man-made.
Yeah.
Maybe not civilization, but like a man-made influence.
Impact on the land.
5 miles. So you think like if you're out in the wilderness, people that hike the Appalachian Trail, stuff like that, you feel like you're really far out there and exposed. Well, 50 miles offshore is 10 times farther than anywhere you can get on land. And 50 miles, we don't think anything of that.
Yeah, you get there half a day.
So, I say, okay, we're
less
700 miles from the Marquesas. We're freaking far out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had the fire alarm go off at 2 a.m. in the engine room and smoke coming out of there instead. And like, I was at the helm because we just, the wind died. We were rolling up, putting the motor on. We're going to motor a little bit. And 10 minutes after the motor went on, the fire alarm goes off. And that split second, I'm like, we might have to get in a life raft out here. Like, because a fire is the scariest thing you can have on a boat offshore.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, oh man. And then you feel that, you feel your heart in your throat and it's just like, okay, now it's real. Until then, it doesn't feel real. And then it turned out to be just a belt that had been misaligned and was making smoke and heat.
When your heart goes in your throat, Andy, what do you, like, I find, and this is something I personally have to work on, it's just calming myself down. Real, like when the shit hits the fan, and we had some moments, nothing too drastic, but turn the key and the engine doesn't start.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of the ocean. Okay, breathe. I was just like, okay, I've heard some people say like the first thing you need to do is make some coffee or make a cup of tea, sit down.
Well, that is classic. Yeah, smoke a cigarette and have a think before you do anything, before you act. I guess I'm lucky in the fact that I just naturally switch into like focused. I just focus.
Yeah.
And I get stressed and my heart rate goes up and I can feel it, but it's not a feeling of panic. It's a feeling of I need to do something now. I need action. And like what happened with this is we shut the engine down. We figured out what we thought the problem was. And then it was a really sleepless night because the wind had died, the sails were slatting around, nobody was sleeping, it was horrible.
Those are the worst.
So Emily got up and the wind had built enough just that we could sail. And I said, you know what? I'm going to bed. I think I know what's wrong. We're fine for right now. Emily said, I'll stake the next 4 hours, go to bed. I sent a couple emails off to Adam to help troubleshoot that I was waiting on a reply from. I said, nothing I can do in the middle of the night. Let's just chill. So I slept.
So you didn't even open the engine room?
No, we did.
Around?
Yeah,
okay.
We looked around. We decided that it was. We figured. Okay, there's not an actual fire.
Right.
There is. It's probably. It was something to do with one of the alternators.
Right.
And best case scenario, it was a misaligned belt. Worst case scenario, the bearings on the alternator itself had burned out.
And you have 2 of those.
Yeah, but the alternator that was the problem was the one attached to the belt that drives the water pump.
Oh.
So my fear was that the bearings on the alternator had seized up, in which case you can't even if the alternator doesn't work.
Are they identical? Could you have swapped them?
No. So we would have had a issue where we would have had to jury rig either the belt or the water pump to bypass that alternator. So this brought up a lot of like, okay, should we have a spare alternator? Should we have a different sized belt that you can just bypass, things that we should have thought of before.
Right.
Anyway, it turned out to just be a belt issue, which I discovered later. But in the moment, we decided, okay, there's no immediate threat. I'm going to go sleep before I try to do anything because I need to sleep. I haven't slept all night.
Smart.
I'm not going to be able to fix anything. I'm only going to get frustrated. It's dark. So Emily took the next 4 hours. I slept, sent a couple emails, slept, got up, read the emails, had a list of troubleshooting things to do, and then it ended up being a 5-minute fix. The belt had just is a serpentine belt that jumped one tooth out of alignment, and the belt was rubbing on the case of the alternator, created all this heat, and it was simple. So
yeah. That is often the best course of action is no action at all for a while. I mean, we had a charging issue. Our alternator was not charging the batteries, and we were in days of overcast weather, and I'm working out in my mind, okay, what do we turn off when? Yep. We started turning the fridge off first at night. Yep. I made the crew hand steer for a number of days. And then, but like, if we really get down to zero power, how do we work that? Fortunately, we got some more sun, and we didn't have, but like I was able to troubleshoot that once we were in, and I was able to sleep, and I was able to actually, the boat stopped rolling and get into the engine and check the electrical.
That's something I talk about a lot, is being able to decide what needs your attention while you're still at sea, and what you can just say, you know what, we're going to live without that, and we'll deal with it when we get there. Because that can ruin a passage. If you spend so much time focusing on trying to fix a non-critical component, you've now taken yourself out of the enjoyment of the
It's
passage.
interesting you say that, because I had that very thing. 2 weeks into the passage, our propane stove started cutting out. It would turn on, and then it would go for a minute and a half and cut out. If we didn't have hot food, it would have been a pretty miserable rest of the month. And I knew it was probably the solenoid or the regulator, which in this boat are in the worst place possible, in the bow locker, so they get wet. No. And we're rolling like mad. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, shit. I know I have to go up there. I know I have to do electrical work up there. But do I really have to? Like, can we fix it? Is it just the burners? So like I spent 2 days like saying, is this something I have to do at sea? And then finally it was clear I did. And we got up there, and it was a pain in the ass, but I had the replacement parts. We swapped them out, and all of a sudden, voila, it's all working. So you have to, it's a real judgment call.
We actually so we thought of that ahead of time on Falcon, and we have a simple bypass on the solenoid. So the propane locker is very accessible. It's in the back.
Yeah.
But if the solenoid quits, you just throw a valve and bypass it completely.
I mean, that was my other workaround. Was like, well, just get the solenoid out of there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was just going to plumb it directly. Turning it off.
So we basically have it plumbed directly on a bypass valve. So you just have to throw a valve instead, and then you have to be aware that, okay, now you have no solenoid.
I mean, they're notorious for going. Right, I don't know what their lifespan is, but
exactly.
They seem to crap out.
But back to your question of what's different in the Pacific, it's from a business perspective. So it's like two things. From a personal perspective, it's like super exciting and exotic, and we're going to all these new places, and it's really exciting for our people that sail with us and the customers and stuff. But from a business perspective, it's much more challenging logistically, much more expensive, and the way the distances are so big, we end up making less money as a business because we're doing fewer passages for longer trips. So like our business model, if this is all, you can figure this out for yourself, but basically if you look at our trips, the longer the trips are, the less cost per day it is for the customer. It's more expensive as a trip, but per day it's a less cost. But our per day costs to run the trips are fixed.
The same.
Because we pay our staff on a per day basis.
And it's more wear on the boat.
Exactly. So from that perspective, it would be like the best thing for the business would just be sail back and forth across the Atlantic. They're easy trips, but like that gets boring. So you have to keep it fresh. So you come to the Pacific, you do these things, going up to Svalbard every once in a while, going to Greenland. Like you got to keep it exciting, both for the staff and for the customers and everything else. But that has to balance against like, well, you still got to pay for all this, and so we're doing two seasons in the Pacific, and the second season is identical to the first. So next year, this is going to be 10 times easier and a lot more efficient because we've already figured it out.
Yeah, you'll have the connections. You'll know where to go. You guys think so far ahead with the business, and you have to plan it out. And I know, Andy, that you're always scheming about big new ideas. Can I pry anything out of you about what you're thinking about for the future?
I'm thinking about lots of things. There's nothing in the... there's one
Nothing
thing.
concrete.
There's one thing sort of in the background, but I'm sworn to secrecy about that. I'll tell you that off the record.
Okay.
But that's sort of tangentially related. It's not exactly related to what we're talking about. But we get I got an email recently from Tapio Leitinen, who did the OGR. Mm-hmm. And he's interested in using his boat maybe and partnering with some 59 North trips on his Swan 55, which is interesting. But, I'm not sure we need anything new at the moment. Personally, for me,
yeah.
So it's actually the challenge for me now is saying no to all these amazing good opportunities.
I mean, that's
what I'm working on.
That's
now.
an important, growth point to get to in your life where you're like, all right, I can rest on my laurels a little bit. Everything. Someone once said to my wife, "You don't always have to do the most difficult thing."
I can relate to that. I think it's a fine line between pushing the boundaries. This is like from the business perspective. Fine line between keeping it exciting and fresh and not blowing up.
Yeah.
And overcommitting and all the rest of this stuff. So there's been a couple
for your
things.
own sanity, we had a great conversation on the previous podcast about just mental health and keeping yourself sane while you're doing these crazy things.
I'm in a much better place now than the last time we talked.
That's awesome.
Which is good. So and now it's like preserving that, but also it's also about the business can't rely on the ups and downs of my mental health. There has to be a structure and a team in place that sort of eliminates
you've done
that variable.
I was saying this to your dad. I mean, the business you've built is so impressive, but one of the things that impresses me most is the team that you've put together. So that you can, and we were talking about that yesterday about how
shout out to Emily, who's on the boat right now, getting ready for our trip. We're leaving today to just go around the corner while I'm sitting here
you're
talking
sitting
to you.
here chatting away. But we're saying, a captain needs to be able to sleep.
Yeah, yep.
On the boat, they need to be able to trust their crew so they can be fresh. And it's the same thing with running a business. I would assume you have to be able to say, "Okay, guys, go."
Yeah. That's the biggest challenge, because I'm also so used to like wanting to be involved. You have to, as the leader, you have to put your skin in the game and get your hands dirty. We have a rule on Falcon and ICEBEAR that the skipper's always in charge of cleaning the heads, because like that's the job nobody else wants to do. So set an example, like set the tone, like my dad taught me this. You can't ever ask anybody to do something
you won't do. Well, I have to tell the story of when we were offshore, but on our way to Lunenburg from Annapolis, and I don't know, it must have been 2 a.m, and one of the heads clogged, and you were right in there for probably an hour working on that toilet, came out with a smile on your face, and I said, "Andy, how do you do that?" You're like, "It's all part of the job."
You have to, yeah. I mean,
you have to. I mean,
and if you don't laugh about it, you're just going to get pissed off.
Exactly. So yeah, it's impressive. I think that letting go aspect. I know it's hard for me.
Well, I was going to ask, how did you sleep? You were 3 people on your passage?
Oh my gosh, 3 people on my passage.
Did you sleep well?
And I couldn't have asked for crew that I trusted more.
Yeah.
I got really lucky in that when I thought, who are the 2 people I want to come with me? I asked them and they came.
Yeah. Who were they?
So my brother.
Yep.
And my college buddy Tim. And I never sailed with Tim, but Tim's brother Sam was my crew 20 years ago on Baggy Wrinkle when we sailed to the Caribbean. So
cool.
I sailed with the family, and they both came. They both said yes. And
it's
we
a big
had
commitment. I mean,
it was a huge commitment.
You asked a month of them, I guess, at least
7 weeks.
Yeah,
for Tim, and my brother took 6 weeks, and they both have family at home. My brother has kids in elementary school. Tim's kids are a little older. He was at a break in work, so it worked out perfectly for him. But many kudos to their families and their wives who said, "Okay, yeah, go for it. This is an experience that you're not going to get a chance to do." But yes, I slept. I slept really well. I mean, of course, anytime the wind changed or the engine turned on, I was up and I was popping my head up saying, "All right, everything all right?"
We were talking the other day, the quickest way to wake up the skipper is change the engine RPMs. If you're motoring or charging or whatever, that's instant wake-up call.
Yeah, and I sleep in the aft cabin right next to the motor, so I hear every little change. But I slept well, but it's still hard for me to let go, especially with the kids. I'm always saying to myself, okay, don't just do it. Teach them how to do it. And that's hard for me. And I if I have people who I didn't trust as much, I mean, it was hard for me, even with my brother and Tim, just to say, all right, you guys raise the mainsail or the anchor. I was still doing the anchor. I would put my brother on the wheel because there's little quirks.
That's it, yeah.
You know, that I know and that I would get upset if something broke. But I need to just realize that they need to learn those things, that I can teach them those things. And
so those quirk things, just to get off the topic slightly, but that's something. So I've spent months refining and building our ship's manual. The idea being that our staff should be able to show up to the boat having never set foot on the boat and with no instruction, read the manual and make the boat work.
that is a ton of work.
But and it's an ongoing process. So I've on this trip, we have a printed and bound copy that I went through and edited, and I have the digital copy on my computer and updated it. Now we'll reprint another version of that. It's constantly being updated. But the most important part of that is we have a separate document that gets printed and laminated that's called Changes, Quirks, and Troubleshooting. So it's like,
I love it.
What is not quite how it should be? What has changed since the last time you were here? And how do you troubleshoot common things? And that's just a long bullet point list of, we changed this part on the windlass, or we changed this thing. And when the anchor comes up over the roller, you got to push the stock down so it doesn't hit the furling drum.
Right.
Just dumb stuff. All the things that you just mentioned.
Tiny little things. And there are
stuff.
Hundreds of them in my brain, right?
Yes.
But if you can get them out on paper, that's great. And that makes it easier to share with other people.
That's been a challenge. And then the other challenge for me is I like things the way I like them, but I'm actually not on the boat that much anymore. So I come back to Falcon and people change things. My biggest pet peeve, and I've decided just to let this go, but I have the manual. It's we've got 2 digital instruments at the helm, one at each helm. It's just a little 4-inch Furuno multifunction display that allows you to select whatever data. And I have in the manual, the first 4 pages are 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't effing touch that. There's 3 other pages, you can put whatever you want in there. Well, every time I come back to the boat, it's different. And I'm just like, you know what? Fine. If people want to do it this way, let them do it. I'm not going to fight it. But it's just little stuff like that you have to, because it's not my boat. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's the whole team's boat, and people, everybody does things slightly differently. And you have to learn to accept that as long as it's not wrong,
right?
It's actually fine. And that actually lends a little bit of personality to each trip, because then, we have the crew on this trip, 7 of 8 of them have sailed with us previously with different skippers. So every trip they get is slightly different because skippers have different personalities and do things slightly differently.
And it's even harder when it is your boat, because I'm like, well, that's not where that knife goes.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
and I had to get over that a bit on this trip, or I would just try and kindly be like, hey guys, let's put this back here, or let's do this
Well,
this
when's
way.
the last time you sailed with somebody else who was in charge on their boat that you could learn from?
You, I believe.
Which is 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I've tried to make that a goal of mine, and that's actually one of the things. So maybe doing this one trip with Tapio, which is we may or may not do, but one of the reasons I'm interested in doing it is it's been 10 years since I sailed with somebody else where I'm not responsible, and you got to remind yourself to do that once in a while.
Totally.
To not get stuck in your ways.
I've done some racing on the bay, and so that's different, which was good.
Yeah, but that's probably even better because you higher stakes
quick.
and you're everything's happening fast.
Well, I'm learning new things because it's so different, right?
Yeah.
It's not the kind of sailing I do, and that gave me the confidence to do more spinnaker sailing. I don't do much spinnaker sailing. I'm not going to do spinnaker sailing on this boat with the kids and my wife.
Right.
It's just not practical. But with my crew, we put it up twice. The last time was the last full day before we got in here. We had 5 hours of glorious spinnaker sailing.
Cool.
Now it was tense. I mean, I'm not an experienced spinnaker flyer, and we're talking a symmetrical spinnaker with the pole, and and we had a sock, and so my brother and I. That was the one time, there was a little bit of yelling. It's funny. My parents, when we were sailing on Chesapeake Bay, my brother and I used to be like, no, not the spinnaker. We don't want yelling.
That's great.
But it was beautiful. And I was so proud.
Yeah.
And it's because I went out racing on San Francisco Bay, and I was able to watch, and I was able to help trim the spinnaker and figure that all out. And so I took that knowledge.
I've long said, I think racing with people that really know what they're doing is the best way to make yourself a better cruiser.
Yeah.
Because you just you raise your sort of limits. It's I can go a lot further than me and the boat can go a lot further than I ever thought. And then then you back off of that, and it's like you're still
Totally.
10%.
You back
better.
off of that. We weren't setting any records, and we were definitely defensive sailers.
Yeah.
But,
How? So you said 2,900 something miles.
Yeah.
In how many days?
23 and a half days.
And what did that? What was that? What did that work out to be per day?
We were averaging about 140 miles a day.
Yeah.
Our best day was 151 miles.
Cool.
Yeah,
It's
we
pretty
had
good.
some
this
nice,
is a small, older, not fast boat.
loaded down with
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
That's great. And you didn't use. I mean, yesterday I stole all your diesel because we ran out of fuel, and you didn't use any
we
fuel.
loaded up with jerry cans because we were, we were working with a sail with a router who was like, "Oh, it's looking like the ITZ is going to be real wide." So we loaded up on jerry cans and motored less than 2 days. So yeah,
That's cool.
I'm glad we were able to help you.
Yeah, we left Galapagos and motored for the first 3 days, I think, just
Yeah.
to get south and find the wind. It was miserable.
It's been a weird. There are changes going on. We
Well, we
definitely know
had
that.
like
There's-
so
with the-
once
with
we
the-
found the wind, the first like 3 days in the breeze was fast, but it was like overcast and raining the whole time, like
Huh.
not squally, just like raining.
Yeah.
And it's just not what I expected when you think of like a trade wind Pacific passage.
No.
It just rained for days.
I mean, from what I've heard, trade winds are supposed to be constant 20 at least, and we had 25 max was the max wind we saw,
yeah.
and probably 10 to 18 most of the time.
Yeah, that's what
It was light.
We had probably we had 8 days in the middle of the passage where we were just ripping. We had the jib pulled out, the main up, reefed most of the time, and we probably had 25 knots of wind. We
Nice.
averaged, or in those 8 days, we did 8 straight days between 220 and 230 miles a day, just effortlessly.
That is
reef in the main,
crazy.
jib on the pole.
That's great that you were able to give the crew that experience.
And that was awesome. So, but then it was a very slow start motoring, and a last 300 miles, the wind shut down, and it was just we had no fuel to motor. We had just enough, like we had to save some for
You
the
got in
last
here on
stretch.
fumes.
So we were sailing jibing angles because there wasn't enough wind to sail downwind.
Yep.
And, oh man, it was hot, and everyone's like ready to be here. I mean, we did it in just under 17 days, so it wasn't nearly as long as you guys were out. But still, people start anticipating the end, and it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
ooh.
that end is hard. I was actually just chatting with a boat who's about to come in, who's probably come in while we were talking. Friends of ours who we buddy boated with last year, and yeah, those light winds at the end, those can be killer because you're just ready to be in.
Yeah.
We did the similar thing. We knew we were going to come. We wanted to come in at daybreak,
Yeah.
and we were going a little too fast actually. So we started jibing downwind and got here right at daybreak a week ago Thursday.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what are you most looking forward to now? We touched on this briefly, but specifically.
Specifically over the next few months, in the near term, I'm really looking forward to sharing this place with my family. Now ask me in a few days and I might be like ripping my hair out of the family here, but no, I'm just looking forward to some amazing secluded anchorages, finding other kid boats, more bonfires on the beach, swimming with the dolphins, swimming with the manta rays, and being able to just marvel at where we are. Walking ashore through small villages, eating mangoes and pamplemousse and breadfruit, and I just want to. It's not going to be that long, the time we have here. So the Tuamotus, snorkeling, seeing the coral atolls, and farther out. The grass is always greener. I'm looking forward to getting back to San Francisco and having a community again, like seeing my friends, and getting back into life, figuring out what I'm going to do next, and seeing what happens. I mean, sailing wise, adventure wise, I don't know what's next, but I'm making so many friends in the cruising community that I hope we have for life, and I hope to go sailing in many different ways in the coming years. So I'm excited about that.
Cool, man. Well, do you got anything else to add? I'm ready to wrap this up. I think my crew's waiting for me to. We're gonna take off and go just around the other side of the island and then up to Nuku Hiva tomorrow.
Yeah, we've talked for a long time. There's been a lot of fun, this conversation. I would just add that I would just say thank you to you and 59 North for being a part of my journey and my wife's journey, because you guys were critical in helping us figure out, okay, can we do this? Is this what we want to do? And you and the quarter deck have been such a font of knowledge and a wonderful resource as I went through the whole process of refit and cruising. So you connected me. I think it was Quarter Deck that connected me with a boat that I helped deliver down the coast. That was a great experience. So again, talking about community, what an amazing community you've built.
Yeah, cool, man. It's nice to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's
cool.
been
Well,
great.
good luck. Say hi to Lauren, and the kids when they get here. And
and maybe we'll catch up with you in Hiva.
We'll be there. That's our last stop with this crew, but then we're there until like May 10th, until the next crew comes. So
I suspect we'll be coming through there before, and then Lauren can see Falcon, and she'll be blown away. I was blown away.
It'll be cleaner when you see it without all the crew on there. So.
And it's so great to see you halfway around the world.
I know, amazing. This is awesome.
Great.
Cool.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks again to Nigel, Jan, and BoatHowTo.com for sponsoring this episode of the show. Check out all their courses at BoatHowTo.com. Thanks again for sponsoring the show. Thanks again to WRI for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Go to WRIWX.com to get in touch for your next forecasting or routing need. On the Wind is the podcast about sailing, created by 59 North and hosted by me, Andy Schell, and also occasionally by Nikki Henderson, Jesse Zevelkink, and August Sandberg. The show is mixed and produced in Frederick, Maryland by Lee Cumberland. Ads are read by us, the hosts, and occasionally by 59 North's bosun Adam Brown and podcast producer Lee Cumberland. And once in a while, Mia. Episode artwork and website show notes are done by Laura Parent in San Francisco. The intro theme music is composed and performed by former podcast guest, sailor, and musician Cameron Dale, while the outro music you're hearing now is, of course, by our friends Storm Weather Shanty Choir from Bergen, Norway. We love hearing from our fans, so send your questions and comments to holdfast@59-north.com, and please do us a favor and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, hold fast.
The horse, I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. As I was walking down the street, I met sweet Angeline. She said, come home with me, me lad, and we'll have a cracking time. But when I awoke, it was no joke. I found I was all alone. My silver watch and my money too, and my whole bloody gear was gone. Was gone, was gone. My whole bloody gear was gone. It was when I awoke, it was no joke, for my whole bloody gear was gone. As I was walking down the street, I met Big Rapper Brown. I asked him if he would take me in, and he looked at me with a frown. He said,
last time you was paid up with me, you took up no score. but I'll take your advice and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more.
Once more, once more, to go to sea once more. I'll take your advice and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more.
Sometimes we're catching whales, me lads, but mostly we get none. With a 20-foot oar in every paw from 5 o'clock in the morn. And when daylight's gone and the night's coming on, we rest upon our oars. And oh boys, you wish that you was dead or snug with the girls ashore.
Ashore, ashore, or snug with the girls ashore. Oh boys, you wish that you was dead or snug with the girls ashore.
Come all you seafaring lads that listen to me song. When you go a big boating, boys, make sure you do not go wrong. You take my tip when you come off a trip, don't go with any horse. But get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more.
No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more.